Hi everyone, today we are going to make sauerkraut. And sauerkraut is probably one of the easiest fermented foods for you to try. If you're new to fermented foods, start with sauerkraut. It is super simple. 2 ingredients, cabbage and salt, unless you count the water. But it is just that simple. Sauerkraut originated over in Eastern Europe. Germany, Russia, Poland were the primary places that started making sauerkraut, and its name means sour cabbage. So let's go ahead and get started, and I will show you how to make the sauerkraut and talk to you a little bit about why you should be making sauerkraut. So you can see I took my head of cabbage, chopped it up already, cut out the center portion, that kind of hard center. I can't even think of what you would call that. I guess it would be like the base of the cauliflower that you want to cut out. So once you cut that out, you're going to chop it up into small pieces. You're going to want a food processor. You put in the shredding disc, and then you just take your cut up pieces of sauerkraut, drop them down into your food processor, and shred away. Also, when you're cutting up your cabbage, be sure to keep one big leaf, because you're going to use this to keep all of the shredded cabbage down underneath the water while it ferments. So save one big leaf. You can save bigger. This is just what I kept. Okay, and once you have it all shredded, we just have to transfer it to our jar. Now obviously I have been making sauerkraut, so I have what's called a starter. All of this liquid is already full of all sorts of probiotics and a little bit of yeast and fungus too, but the primary microorganism that's in this is bacteria. Now when you ferment your cabbage, you actually take the vitamin C that's in regular cabbage and boost it by about 20 times. So the sauerkraut becomes an amazing source for vitamin C. It's very anti-inflammatory. The probiotics in sauerkraut help reduce allergies. They help reduce abdominal discomfort, such as irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, a lot of those intestinal things. A lot of the symptoms can help be alleviated. Diarrhea can be treated and prevented with sauerkraut. And have your funnel ready, and then we're just going to take the sauerkraut and put it right down into the jar. Now even if you do not have a starter in your jar, that's okay. You don't have to have a starter, or you can purchase a starter or get it from a friend, but you don't actually need a starter. The cabbage itself is full of soil-based probiotics, and that will start and it will ferment all by itself without the help of a starter. Using a starter just speeds up the process, so once you've made the sauerkraut, always save a little bit of leftovers for each additional batch, because that is going to allow you to ferment sauerkraut more quickly when you do it that way. So we are going to get this sauerkraut down inside our jar. You can also use a red cabbage to make sauerkraut, and you'll get the benefit of the anthocyanins from the color. Every brightly colored food has added antioxidants, so red cabbage is just as good of a choice as green. I just happen to have some green sitting around in my fridge, and we were all out of sauerkraut, so I shredded up the green cabbage. Some other great bonuses of the sauerkraut is that you will find it's going to alleviate symptoms such as eczema and arthritis. It also has cancer fighting properties and preventive properties, because it has sulfuric compounds in it that help fight those free radicals that can be damaging to us. So that's good enough. We're just going to press it down in. I made a little bit of a mess. So that is there's just a lot of fantastic reasons to make sauerkraut, and those are just a few of them. And I'm actually going to link you over to some places that tell you about sauerkraut so that you can read more about it. And you can see I've put the cabbage down inside of there. I did make a little bit of a mess. I guess we can pick some of this up. So far we've shredded cabbage, put it in our jar. Now we're going to take some salt. Now you can see I have a large jar. Once you make the sauerkraut, it will sit in your fridge for months. So you don't have to worry about it going bad. Just put it in the back of your fridge where it's nice and cold. It will ferment a little bit more, and eventually it'll reach its peak probiotics, and it will start dissipating as time goes on. But because you have it in a nice chilled part of the refrigerator, you don't have to be super concerned about it losing a lot of its probiotic load. It's gonna stay back there very nicely. So I don't use a full tablespoon. I use most of a tablespoon because I actually don't have a full jar here. And I throw that in, so see, I didn't even use it all because I have the starter in there, and because it can get really salty if you go over too much. So obviously adjust your salt based on the amount that you're making. If this is a ½ gallon, if you're making just a quart, then don't use more than a ½ of a tablespoon. The salt is what keeps the wrong microorganisms from growing, because you can get like a pink yeasty fungus. You can get some things growing that you don't want to have growing in here. They're not going to hurt you. You can scrape them off and use what's underneath, but I found once that gets started, a lot of times, even if you scrape off the sauerkraut that's got the yeast on it, it will, if you leave anything behind, it will continue to regrow and creep down your container. So I like to make sure I put a reasonable amount of salt in there, but even more important, and then you're just going to put some filtered water to cover. And that is also going to disperse your salt, which I guess you want to make sure that salt's getting moved around. So now you don't want to fill it up completely with water. So even if I've had enough of the cabbage to fill it, you never want to fill it up past here, because you need some airspace, because it's going to create more juices and it will actually overflow if you don't give it enough space for the extra juices to go. So you can see maybe that I have fully submerged the cabbage leaf, and that there is a little bit of cabbage floating on top, but the majority of it is underneath, under the water. Now you can actually take a small jar. They have even smaller jelly jars in case that you, yeah, see, I need the smaller jelly jar to do this. So I'll come back. I have half jelly jars down in the basement, and you can set a jar down in there, and that really keeps everything submerged. Or they even make weights, glass weights that you can buy online, but this jar is just gonna be too big. We'll swap it out. Now, I do recommend getting a fermentation lid. They make a ton of different kinds. This is one that I found on Amazon that was really reasonable. It has a rubber ring to help seal the air, because this is an anaerobic fermentation, which means it does not want to exchange air. That's why everything is down underneath water. And then it has this handy little lid that keeps it in kind of its own little you know, airtight. It's not getting exposed to a lot of contaminants in the air. And you just fill it up to a line. There's a line on here, it says fill line. So what that does is it keeps it from having an air exchange where air is coming in and out, because that's going to allow more things to grow that you don't want inside of there, and instead keep the fermentation happening to what microorganisms are already inside of here. Now the lid has teeny tiny holes all the way around the outside that are going to allow for the exchange of air, because once this starts to ferment, and you'll know that it's happening because you will see little bubbles rising up from the surface, because as the microorganisms that were naturally on the sauerkraut ferment, they're going to create air bubbles. And so this is going to let the air come up and out without letting any air go down in. And that's what happens in our fermentation. My son needs something. What do you need? Nothing. He's probably coming up looking for food. So you can see that that's just how simple this is. You're literally shredding cabbage, adding some salt and pouring water over it, and then making sure it's fully submerged. And like I said, I will actually get a weight. We have the little jelly jars. I will set it down inside of there. That will move the water up and give me just enough air space to allow for extra juices. But to be honest, I actually put it on a little tray on my counter because it can really ferment and the juices can just overflow and you will suddenly have sauerkraut juice all over your counter. Now mine has a starter, so it will probably be ready within a week. If you don't have a starter, it might take up to 2 weeks, and you will see the change. You will see the bubbles rising. You will see your cabbage changing into the sauerkraut texture. And once you have the raw sauerkraut, the key is not to heat it, because once you heat it, you're going to kill all of those probiotics that you just worked so hard to make. So you are going to eat this sauerkraut raw. You can put it on your salad. You can still put it with dishes that you make, add it to it. It's just not going to be heated. You can also just have a spoonful of it a day because, again, the probiotic load in sauerkraut, it's fantastic to eat every single day. Or if you're starting to feel sick, a spoonful of the sauerkraut juice is going to give you a crazy amount of vitamin C plus all the probiotics. So this is definitely an excellent food to have. It's super simple to make. It will keep in the back of your fridge for a long time. Again, you can start off with a smaller container and work your way up. But I do really recommend using the fermentation lids. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comment section, and I will also link you to some more information on all of the benefits of sauerkraut. Great, have a great day.